I've got AirPod Pros listening to you right now. A freaking iPhone 13 Pro, a MacBook Pro. What else do I have that's Apple? I got an Apple Watch. I got an iPad. I got something else here that's Apple based.
Yeah.
Something else is Apple based, like my keyboards and a wireless. Like I'm doing the most with Apple right now.
Same.
So yeah, they're definitely filling needs in my life. But guys, we don't need new hardware every 2 to 3 years. You guys come up with a new phone every 6 months. Like you must be the sole reason why there's a plastic island the size of France in the entirety of the UK, bro. Like, you're not recycling the hardware that you're making. You're literally just making more shit, you know? I don't know. I could go on about this for time, but I prefer to talk about myself and my album and how great I am. I guess that's my incessant need to make myself feel good every day, you know? That's like, I guess, how Instagram and Twitter works, you know? Like, they allow you to, I guess it was the same thing with MySpace. Like, they allow you to showcase who you are for the first time. Like, this is my photo, and this is what I like, and this is my biography, and this is my favorite 5 songs, and these are my top friends. Do you know what I mean? And since then, the whole idea of just talking about ourselves has now become a standard. It's not like we weren't talking about ourselves before, but right now it's like, it's so much easier. It's so easy now to just like, here's a location where all of my best self exists. Go to look at it, go and look at it, go and look at it, go and look at it. Like it's I wouldn't say it's egotistical, but it definitely feels there's like an accepted increased level of narcissism for the human race is what I'm trying to say, I guess. I could be wrong.
Yeah, no, I hear that, man. And I think, do you know what? I actually think it is egotistical, but not in like a narcissistic, confident type of way. I think it comes from a place of insecurity. I think it comes from a place of like wanting to show everyone else how good your time is and your life is and the things that you're doing.
Yeah.
And proving to everyone like, this is how great everything is for me, because you want to get the approval of everyone else because of what you're showing, right? And that
sure
to me, and I've experienced it in my own life, that came from a very deep place of insecurity of feeling like I needed to be approved by other people or like validated by other people.
Yeah. I don't know where that came from. Genuinely, I really don't. It's weird. Like oh man, as a kid, excuse me. As a kid, when you go to school, you were presented with this award system. Sorry, you were presented with this reward system, that is centered around your performance in any given subject. It could be merits, it could be stars, it could be the ranking from a U to an A star, but either way, there's a reward system, right? And they identify it with like a big red marker or the gold star or the merit system, or even putting you on a podium in assembly and being like, you're that guy who is exceedingly better than everybody else. Do you know what I mean? And so the spotlight's on you and it's addictive, that spotlight. And if you don't get that spotlight, like, it's very easy to believe that you're not worth anything. Like the concept of just being normal, because nobody, by and large, nobody remarks on the person who does what everybody else does, you know? And you, I don't know, like, it depends on who you are, how you were raised, but some people aren't comfortable with being like everybody else, or at least just fading into the background. Some people are more than comfortable fading into the background and are happy doing and being who they want to be in their own corner of the world, you know? So yeah, I guess it was exacerbated in school, in the education institutions, or just, it may just be like a fact of life where you want to compare yourself to the other person. Since the caveman days, where if you were hunting and your kill was smaller than the next caveman, then you're automatically seen as someone who's less of a provider than the other members of the tribe, you know, and therefore your desirability is considerably less than everybody else. So I don't know, it could be argued that and again, that's just one very loose example of, or euphemism that I haven't really studied that much. Do you know what I mean? I'm literally just winging it here, trying to find out where narcissism comes from, or where fucking, where our need to be seen or be noticed or be rewarded or be acknowledged for how good we are comes from. I don't know, man. I don't know. I mean, I try to, it's always been within me to want to do that, you know, to want to be seen for the things that I did. Sorry, there's a motorcyclist outside who's just attention seeking. There's when I started music, I mean, I was afflicted by the same curse, if I can describe it that way. Like, as a musician or as an artist, you want to show off the shit that you like, you know? Like, you want people to marvel at the work that you have or the art that you create. And I guess I've kind of always had that within me. Like, I've always, in my mind, I always felt like better music was more elaborate musicality or more elaborate wordplay or I don't know, just music that was creatively different than everything else, than what was on mainstream radio. That was my thinking at one point in my life, you know? And so that became almost my USP at one point. Like, what could I do musically that nobody else could do? Like, there was a cover series that I did called the Shakka, and it was essentially just like me making cover songs quite literally from scratch. So I'm not finding any backing tracks or type beats from YouTube or anything like that. I'm quite literally just saying, okay, cool, like, this is the snare drum, this is the bass drum. I'm going to beatbox every layer until it sounds as close to the original as it possibly can. Those covers evolved into mashups and all that kind of stuff. And with that, I used that as, that ultimately became what I was known for, you know, the guy who was super nerdy when it came to putting songs together. Over time, going to shows, writing with people, watching how music connects to different people, I realized that it's beyond you, it's beyond me. It's not about me. Like, it's about whether or not I can provide fulfillment for the people who are listening to me, for the people who are listening to my voice. And that provides so much peace, in honesty, because for a while, I was always thinking about, like, if, like, as an example, if a song didn't connect, I would always think, what the fuck? Like, I know I'm good. Like, I know, like, are you not hearing these harmonies, bro? You're hearing these fucking harmonies, bro? But then, like, some people actually can't hear harmonies, first and foremost. Like, not everybody is attuned to the elaboration of the art form that you present to them. And then some people don't care. Like, some people literally just want escapism from their 9 to 5, or some people want the soundtrack to an aspect of their 9 to 5, or they want a soundtrack to an aspect outside of their 9 to 5, i.e. yoga or running or making love with their partner or something like that. And over time, I started thinking more about what my DNA had to offer to those needs that humans had for those times that they spent in life, or for those moments of existence, you know? Like, how are you making people's lives better with your art, sort of thing? So I guess there's still this element within me that wants to show off, but then there's also more this part of me that really, really just wants to have, like, an album that stands the test of time, or an album that really makes people go back and be like, oh, fuck, I remember what I was doing when I listened to this. Or, like, when I heard this album, like, colors started changing. Like, I want that shit, you know? Yeah, and it's tough to discern between making stuff because you think it's cool, and then making stuff because you think that it will have impact, or that it will provide fulfillment, you know?
I think, yeah, I think, do you know, I think that's so interesting, yeah, because I've always wondered from a fan point of view, right? And I've been pretty like deep in my fandom of music. Like I had a
Mm,
music blog that I started in 2010 with one of my best mates called We Are SME. We used to blog about
mm,
you, and
You guys
back
showed a
in,
lot of love.
yeah, man. And like I even remember like probably 8 9 years ago, I did like a little stint on Rinse with on Rinse FM with Tania on, I think it was the breakfast show at the time. I did like
Sick.
6 weeks with her, and I
Tania
can't remember
Taylor.
yeah, I can't remember exactly how it
She's the
came
homie.
about. Yeah, she's sick, right? I can't remember how it came about, but it was either we got to choose a song that we want that I wanted to bring, or I
Yeah.
got to choose songs from the system. I can't remember which way it was at the
Sick.
time. But I remember picking out one of your songs because I really like this dude because he's making like a different type of music to what I'm hearing everywhere else.
Yeah.
And it feels like he's not making that music to try and like please an audience. You know, like, do you know what I mean? There's almost like sometimes in music there feels like there can be a formula to it. Like you
Yeah.
make
Yeah.
this type of music with this type of sound and the song breaks at this point and then you
Yeah.
hit
Yeah.
the crescendo here and it's
Yeah.
like, do you know what I mean? It's like there's too much of a
Yeah.
formula to it. And I felt like at the
Yeah.
time and still now that you've never really uh put yourself in that mold. And I've always been interested from a fan point of view. How do you get that balance between like making music that you want to make in the sounds that you want to make and not falling into that making a music that sounds a certain type of way because you know it's going to get people's ears and attention?
There's there's a lot of reasons. There's a lot of reasons. I was so scared that this recording was going to stop, but Logic is smart and it just extends. This is a great program. And I'm out here sending for Apple like they don't know what they're doing. Yeah, sorry. Quick side note. There's a lot of reasons that attribute to what I'll describe as the tightrope between making music that has a strong sense of identity versus making music that adheres to a hype or a wave or a trend. And I love waves, or rather I love art that's dope. Like, and I love being part of a community. It's fun. Like, it's fun to go to Culture Clash and watch Skepta Leng and watch Wiley Leng. It's fun. Like, it's very, very... I look forward to spitting the bars that they like spitting. And I also look forward more so to seeing the crowd spit the bars that I'm a fan of, that everyone else is a fan of. There's a sense of belonging. There's a sense of affirmation, you know? I now know where I come from because I saw Frisco go... I come through like, what is he on? Skep, who's my man? Is he on? I come here to, like, it gasses me, you know? Yeah. But it also makes me feel like I know who I am, you know? And there's a beauty in that sense of community, you know? And it almost feels like a dirty word to say trend or hype or wave, because that implies that the artist or the person who's making a piece of art that is compatible with that wave, that implies that they don't have a sense of independent thought, or that they don't have their own style or their own shape or identity, you know? And some people, for some artists, it might just take time for them to find out who they are. Miles Davis said it best himself. He said it took him 30 years to find out how to play like himself. And that was based on the law of studying and almost copying all of your neighboring artists or the artists that you look up to, in order to find yourself, you know? So there is definitely a lot of that element. But then the flip side of that now is the importance of being yourself. And being yourself, in my opinion, comes from knowing who you are and where you came from, and knowing your upbringing, and also knowing what your purpose is. And when I say purpose, I just mean like the general idea of why you make the art that you make, you know? And then loving that, like loving your genetic makeup, like the genetic makeup that comes from your culture, that comes from your parents, that comes from your family, that comes from the guys and the girls that you grew up with in school. Like all of them essentially form your genetic makeup. People say that you're a product of your environment. And that is by and large true in this case, you know. With that being said, I loved my DNA. Like, with a passion, bro. Like, I just thought it was the sickest thing since sliced bread. Like, the Calypso influences in my music, I loved Notting Hill Carnival. Like, I loved it. Soca music, there's hardly any other genres that's better than soca music in my mind, right? Like, it's positive music that involves close contact dancing with hot chicks. What more could you possibly want? Like, it's a gorgeous art form, you know? Sorry, I'm on the tail end of a cold, so you'll probably hear a lot of sniffing.
That's all good.
And so there was a passion for the art form and the culture that I came from. There was a passion for the slang that we used and the accent that we used. Like, I frequently went to Dominica, and the beauty of that was that I saw the cool in my home country. I saw the beauty in the hills and the valleys and the food and the drink and the slang that we all had, including the styles of music that came from there, you know? So when it came to, like, making songs like, I made a song called Sugarcane, which was a song I did after Man Down. It wasn't as commercially successful as Man Down. At the same time, however, it was, in my eyes, the modern form of soca music. It was like my interpretation of what I thought, or where I thought soca could go. You know, if Drake did soca, this is what I thought it would sound like. And most people or most artists would be like, yeah, I'm in a major label deal right now. I'm not going to fuck this up. I'm just going to stick to the script and just keep doing what radio dictates. And that makes sense, you know? Like, if you're going to do that, then do it. Like, most people have different sense of purposes. But me, bro, like, I'm on this planet for one time, yeah? Like, for one time. And if I'm going to try anything creatively and I've got this shot to do it, I'd like to believe that I tried it. And then the other thing is, like I say, a lot of the decisions between adhering to the wave and adhering to your DNA is influenced by the team that you've got around you. And I've been working with Nikki, my manager, for like the past 10 years. And she also comes from the similar culture that I come from. She is also hugely passionate about the culture that I come from. So it doesn't feel like I'm speaking Greek whenever I play any of these new demos to her, because she's like, okay, I see what you did there. Do you know what I mean? And so when we go into these meetings with the team that we're working with, she has the insane ability to be able to communicate those gorgeous, or what we believe are the gorgeous elements to the music that we've made, you know? So it's a tightrope, man. Like, there's many elements that come to having a balance. Ultimately, however, my goal in music, or just in art in general, is to get our culture to where New York culture was across the board around the world, or to get our culture to the notoriety level that the New York culture has, or the Southern American, African American culture has. People know the phrase "what's happening." People know the phrase "what's good, homie." They know it. You could go to Romania, you can go to Holland, you can go to Germany. People know what that phrase is. Not many people know the phrase "wagwan." Not many people know the phrase "yo, you need to pattern up." Like, but they're cool phrases, bro, and they can be said in a sexy way. And there's many different ways in which we could deliver our culture in the same way that the African Americans can deliver their culture, you know. And in line with that, I definitely want to make it so that I want to make it so that the non-hypermasculine at times metrosexual dreamers don't feel pressured to adhere to the hypermasculine stereotype, or even the very stringent stereotype that's expected of us as black creatives in the UK. Because there is an expectation of the type of music that we have to make. Like, the majority of the music videos that we see nowadays, either on your grime dailies or your link ups, or just in general in the quote unquote scene that we have, there's a reason why there are a lot of cars in the videos, or a lot of hot girls in the videos, or a lot of references to gang culture. Some of the artists who do that music actually come from that culture. And so they're not lying when they make music, or when they incorporate a lot of those elements in their art forms, you know, because there's purposes for a lot of those elements that they include, either in their videos or even in their songs or their lyrics, you know. Like, this isn't me bashing any of those elements, because to many people, when you see someone in a chain or a Lamborghini, to that community, that signifies growth, that signifies elevation, and coming out of a place of that could be despair, or that could be some form of poverty, you know. The flip side to that, however, is that the more popular it gets, you'll have people who look like me and sound like me, who might feel pressured to have to do something like this, or to have to adhere to something like this, or have to incorporate elements that exist in this, despite the fact that they don't see any meaning in that, or that they don't see any fulfillment in that, you know. If I win, then people like me win, you know. And so I guess then there's a bigger necessity for me to have a balance with the tightrope, if that makes sense. The beats have to bang, definitely. The lyrics have to bang. The choruses have to bang. Then I believe that sex appeal is a gorgeous element to incorporate in art. I believe that masculinity or aspiration or strength are all great elements to incorporate in art, or all great elements to use to tell a story. I also feel like vulnerability and communication and romance and all of those things are equally as important, you know. So there are many reasons why I balance on a tightrope, and it's purely for the elevation of black music in the UK.
Yeah, and I love that, man, because there's a real like sentiment behind it. And even like what you're saying, yeah, about like the hyper masculinity thing and the kind of the status game, right? Like you're saying,
Yeah,
people will have the cars and the girls and the chains and stuff to show
yeah,
elevation in what they've come from to where they're at, right?
yeah, yeah,
But I think the danger in that is that people see that as being something that's quote unquote successful,
yeah,
i.e., in their mind equals happiness,
yes,
and they chase it for themselves. And I'm
yes.
speaking from personal experience. Like, I've done that. I've been there. I've
Okay.
been I've been in the clubs on the tables where we're popping bottles and getting the sparklers out, and
The
it's
sparklers.
I've been, bruv, I've been on the tables in Vegas where we're popping bottles, and we've got girls turning up in a mini like
What's it
mini
like?
bathtub carrying the bottle and all that. Like,
When
it,
did you go to Vegas? Like, what was the
I've been a few
occasion?
times, man. I've been on a couple of
And
stag
no
do's.
invite. I hear you.
Like, couple stag do's, and the first time was a boys' holiday. And
Okay.
like, don't get me wrong, like I love those holidays, like the lifetime memories. Like, but when I look at actually what we're doing when we're there, and not in a bad way, and I'm not judging it, like people want to do it, they want to do it, it's cool, there's no
Of
judgment on my
course.
part.
Of
But
course. Of course.
I look at that now, and I think that's so far removed from like who I am, like as a person deep inside. I'm so
Yeah.
far removed from this idea of needing to show off an idea of success
Yeah.
or wealth, or whether you've got it or not, like it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
the need to show it off, to
Yeah.
go back to what we were saying earlier, to seek some kind of validation or approval from
Yeah.
others. Like, the only
Yeah.
reason that you pop a bottle in a club and you get the sparklers coming is so that people can look at your table and be like, oh, look, those guys have money. Who cares? Like, it's not that deep, like, because you might have all the money in the world and you might be miserable, but you also might have all the money in the world and be happy. It's not a, if you have money you're going to be miserable situation.
It's true.
But
It's
why do
true.
you need to show that and showcase that to people? And I think sometimes that can be the danger in the culture of music that and the scene that we've been involved, well, you still are involved in, but I've been heavily
Yeah.
involved in myself.
Yeah.
I think that, yes, there's an element of wanting to celebrate what you've done and how far you've come, but there's also a danger of like people seeking that, thinking that that's going to make them feel happier.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I think that plays out in lots of different areas in life. And actually, one of the things that I really took from your album was this idea of masculinity and like trying to live up to this kind of standard of what masculinity is, particularly in like
Interesting.
personal relationships, right? Is like trying to live up to
Yeah.
this expectation, knowing that
Yeah.
actually this isn't this isn't me. Like with me
Yeah.
in the clubs, like I used to think that was me, but I've been there in that situation more recently, knowing
Yeah.
it's not me, but I'm still in that situation and I'm feeling a bit like disengaged from it. I'm a bit like, oh, this isn't me.
Yeah.
This feels a bit weird now.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
so I'm interested to hear like how
I
that.
kind of, I kind of want to. Sorry if I'm cutting
Yeah,
off
go
a
for it. Go for
question.
it.
If do you already know what the question is that you're gonna ask in your head?
It was gonna come to me. I don't know what it was gonna be, but if you
Oh,
had something to
well,
build on, let's go for it.
well, yeah. I mean, I'm really sorry to stop your train of thought. It's because I was thinking about the album as you were asking the question, and I'm eager to know the correlation between the journey of understanding your place in masculinity or understanding your perspective of masculinity, the correlation of that and what I've done in
Mm,
Road Trip to Venus, because I can sit here and be like, oh, it's about this, it's about that, it's about this, it's about that. But then the thing is, this album took 6 years to make, and so I was in many different stages of my life, mentally and emotionally, as I was making this. So yeah, it will be good to hear your thoughts. Is what I'm saying
Would you know?
regarding
Yeah,
that.
I know for sure, man. Like I'm actually like, I'm saying it on here, so now it's gonna definitely have to happen. But I'm actually looking at making a new series, which is about reviewing like music that I like and films that I like from a like because I coach now, like from a life coaching perspective, and
Oh
seeing
wow,
like the learnings in the content and the stuff that I engage with.
of
And I wanted
course.
to make one on your album because I think it's really interesting. But I'll give
Oh
you like
wow.
I'll give you a little rundown now because I don't want, I want to do that properly. I want to do it proper justice, and like actually I want to like plan it out and do proper justice to it. But to answer your question, I think the thing that I see right is that, I mean, even the title itself, to me, what I interpret from it, Road Trip to Venus, is like obviously Venus is like the female planet according to
Yes.
whoever
Yes.
said that originally.
Yeah.
And it's like the road trip from a guy being from Mars or whatever
Yeah.
to experience life on Venus, but through the lens of being from Mars, i.e., through the lens that we have of what we think masculinity is, not what masculinity is, but what we think it is, and
Yeah.
experiencing a relationship or relationships through that lens of what we think masculinity is and how that doesn't always necessarily play out in the best way possible.
Yeah.
And do you know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
we're bringing an ingenuine self
Yeah.
to the relationship. And again, I've
Yeah.
experienced this myself. I've brought an ingenuine self to a relationship, and it comes across you either come across needy or you come
Yeah.
across disengaged, or do you know what I mean? It comes across in so many different ways.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I really took from the album is like that journey of like understanding yourself as a guy, but you know, particularly for like you and the album as a young black guy, like understanding yourself from a male perspective and what your role is in a relationship.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I really took from it, and the kind of understanding and the learnings that were going on.
Yeah.
But that being said, like I'd love to hear more about like, well, if that was something that you consciously put in the music, but like
Yeah.
why that journey of the album of like male male perspective of a relationship or relationships, shall we say,
Yeah.
played such a
I
big
mean,
role in it.
uh, it, the title came after the music. I will say that first, and I say that because I never really want to start with like a title or like a concept or a theme unless it feels that way after at least 50% of the music that I have. That's if I know that I'm at 50% of making the music. But like, it felt like a kaleidoscope of love. It felt like I was talking about many aspects of love. It could be self-love. It could be innocent love. Not innocent love, but more so like understanding that the feeling is love, but not fully understanding the consequences of acting on those emotions, sort of thing. So that's what I mean by innocence. Just like,
Mm.
just freestyling, essentially.
What do you mean by the consequences of acting on those emotions?
So solo is a I guess probably the best song to describe that scenario, because I fell in love with a good friend of mine, and this wasn't just about me; it's about a few other people who I knew found themselves in this circumstance. But like, I fell in love with a great friend of mine, and yeah, the feeling was mutual, and we didn't know. Naturally, when that happens, and you find yourself in an intimate sexual relationship, the consequences of this are how it affects the neighbors, or how it affects your life going forward. You know, like how do you identify yourselves from now on? Like, what is this something that you actually want? Are you blurring the lines between having someone that you can confide in without having that intimate element, and actually being in a relationship? What does that mean? You know, yeah, like it. Sex with friends is dangerous. Them kind of games weren't made for us. Left your man and said, "What's up?" I guess that's when I was eyeing you up. Like it's. There's a lot of elements that are quite primal, but then there's also a lot of elements that are very romantic. Like that ain't got a name, but we got the trust. Ain't got a name, but we love to fuck. Like the intention was to imply that this whole thing is hazy, but we don't care because it feels good. So let's just do it, you know. So kind of ignoring what consequences could come from not knowing what this entity is, because if you don't know what you're getting yourself into, then you don't know what's expected of each other. And if you don't know what's expected of each other, and then you subconsciously expect something from your partner who might not even be your partner, then resentment builds up. And that has an effect on the stability of the relationship which was actually really fucking awesome before, you know? So there's almost like a willful ignorance and a willful innocence that comes with engaging in that kind of a scenario. And then even with that comes like the realization that you don't have it all figured out in love yet, you know? And so on this road trip, you're asking those questions, you know? Should I have done this? Should I have done that? Should I have acted differently, you know? And then the next stop, you find yourself in a different scenario, you know, where, I don't know, you're dating a girl who is the support system for her entire family, you know? That was Don't Mind Waiting. And the girl in question finds herself having to deal with her brother who is doing road, essentially. And so like he's pushing weight for whichever crew that he's part of. He's bringing in a lot of money, and so instead of his mum saying, "Yo, you shouldn't be doing this," she's actually trying to hide it from the police, you know. And this is weighing on her mind. All this girl wants to do in this house is ensure that her family's good, while still trying to find love, while still trying to pursue a career in whatever she wants to pursue a career in. All of that takes time, yet the rest of the world don't care. The rest of the world are just looking at her like she's coming into work with a fucking stink face, or she's, I don't know, the angry black girl in the NHS who just wants to get medication for her mum. Like, they don't know the stresses that this girl has to deal with. And so I'm just out here being like, I don't mind waiting. Like, whatever you have to do, just take your time and do it, and then come to my yard and we'll pop a Magnum and pretend that life don't exist, you know? And like, but that's still love, you know? That's still holding space for someone, basically, you know? Then the aspects of self-love exists. And again, the song When You Grow Up is about a letter to my 5-year-old self, essentially asking him whether or not the life that I've built for him, or this career that he has, matches the dreams that he had at the age of 5, you know? There was a time in my life, and there is still moments in my life, where I ask myself whether or not I've achieved the level of notoriety or success that I thought I should achieve, or that I think that my potential deserves. And so I wrote a song about it, you know, like it, but the I guess the angle was You know, asking my 5-year-old self whether or not, because my 5-year-old self is the author of the album. You know, like his imagination goes to these places, and then I try and shape it so that the rest of the world can connect somehow. You know, so yeah, it's there are many, when it comes to like masculinity or hyper masculinity. I guess there are elements that I try to challenge, really. Or I wouldn't say challenge. I think there are elements that I try to just be honest about within myself, you know? Like, I'm not out here saying that, um, um, Jack me, nah, you don't want to do that. Like, yo, I'll say that, definitely. At the same time, however, like, I've never been in those scenarios as frequently as some of my most aggressive counterparts. Do you know what I mean? So it's not going to be a frequent theme in my album, you know? At the same time, other people might expect it to be a frequent theme in my album. They may expect one of the themes to be like me mobbing with the gang and just like, you know, like professing how nobody should fuck with me, otherwise they're going to lose their life. Like, that's dead. Like, it's never really been a subject matter that I talk about on a regular basis, you know? So with that comes the realization that the subject matters that I do talk about are like questioning my potential as a man, or wondering why the man them always tell me that I need to move to this chick in a club, knowing that this chick is not for me, fam. Yes, cool, like she's thick and she's giving me the eye, and we'll probably smash a few times during the week because we're sexually attracted to each other. Past that, bro, like lady treating my flat like a hotel. Lady tell me she allergic to her phone bills. No one gave me the sign to say she ain't my soulmate. All I hear are the lads yelling in the backseat like, oh, no problem, fam, I'm down. If she's on it, I'm down. Like, the emphasis upon the surface level attraction is common amongst the lads who just want to party. Do you know what I mean? And the song, No Problem, Fam, is essentially about just talking about how ridiculous that gets after a while. Do you know what I mean? It's sick and it's dope, and promiscuity is so fucking fun. And it's what's the word? A gorgeous journey of escapism. Beyond that then, however, like, all of the men them want a life partner. All of the men them want a house and kids to be able to pass on their lessons that they had in their lives, you know? And so that narrative gets boring after a while. Do you know what I mean? So, yeah, man, there's I wouldn't say I'm intentionally trying to challenge the perception of masculinity or what it means to be a guy, you know? But I will say that there are just many elements within me that force me to do that, you know? The way I was raised has an effect on that. Yeah, man, there's many elements. There's many elements. Yeah. I hope that answered the question or was related to the question in some way.
Yeah, no, it does, man. And I hear what you're saying, because, like, you know, even from an outside perspective, like, I've always seen like you as being someone who, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but like who seems very confident and comfortable within themselves, but not in a way that is this kind of overly, you know, like hyper masculine, you know, kind of macho way. It's always been in a very gentle, soft, like caring, expressive way. And the way that I've always consumed your music is from that place. Like, I received that place from you, or rather, let me say that in a better way, it allows me to reconnect to that place within myself, because I identify it as being something that's okay. Do you know what I mean? Rather than like, and don't get me wrong, like, I still love like the turn up music. Like, I want to be in the club, and like, I want to be like, not, I think aggressive is the wrong word, but do you know what I mean? I want to like expel that energy as well. Like, I don't, and I think that's healthy. Do you know what I mean?
I was
like,
just gonna say,
because it's balance, right? It's like you shouldn't fight off the vulnerable side of yourself, and you shouldn't fight off the aggressive's not the word I want to use. There's another word, but it's not coming to me. But hopefully, if you're listening, you can understand what I mean. But like, you should want to express the aggressive side as well, because that's that brings you back into balance. Like, but
Yeah.
if you're always just trying to stay in one of those places,
Yeah.
then that's when I find that, and I've seen it in my own life, where there's a lot of dissatisfaction in your life because you're like labeling this side of things over here, like, oh, vulnerable is like not good for me, I shouldn't be vulnerable. So every
Yeah.
time you have a moment of slight vulnerability, you're pushing it away, and you're
Yeah.
creating a dissatisfaction around how you feel, even though
Yeah.
that's a pretty normal feeling, like
Yeah.
sadness or frustration or
Yeah.
loneliness or whatever. So they're all pretty normal feelings that we all feel.
Yeah.
You're not in it alone.
Yeah.
And I think that sometimes if you're just trying to connect to one part of you, that you forget that, because you're like, you deem another part of you as not being okay. And this is where music sometimes has become like therapy for people, and for me is like, because you hear the kind of more, again, not the necessarily the correct word, but the more aggressive type of music, and then you
Yeah.
hear the kind of softer music, the kind of stuff that you make and plenty of other artists make, and it allows you to connect to that part in yourself in a way where you're like, okay, actually it's okay to have these kind of feelings within myself, and it's
Yeah.
okay to
Yeah.
experience this sometimes, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. Definitely. I feel a multitude of feelings, man, if I'm honest, when it comes to, especially when it comes to making music, because there were definitely moments where I felt like I needed to make that music. And when I say that music, I mean like music that gave the impression that I had no weakness, music that gave the impression that I had everything mapped out. And it feels good to listen to that shit, do you know what I mean? Like I was listening to You Don't Know by Jigga on the way to doing some errands later on, earlier in the day. 10 million, 11 million, 12 million more. Now you're looking at one smart, rich black boy. And it feels good to say that, you know? Like, I could sell water to a well. Like, yo, like, to have that sense of capitalistic acumen, bro, like, but to say it in a way that sounds cool and doesn't sound like you're working for Forbes magazine, that's pretty sick. Like, it's cool to have a balance between street smart and money smart. You know, everybody wants that balance. It's alluring, basically. You know, yeah. And I feel like at times I do feel like that. At times I do feel like what's the word? Trying to think. At times I feel less about providing some profound sense of meaning or providing a cool new perspective, and I think more about satisfying my primal instincts. Like, there's a Price on the album essentially talks about wild sex, and it's fun, and it's dope, and it's something that I'm passionate about, you know. And yeah, at times I'll just talk about it because it's just cool, you know. And I love having the outlet to be able to do that. And I love knowing that if I perform it on stage, there's like an audience of human beings who are waiting to either hear that song or dive into that bag, you know? And there are times where I want to have like moments of vulnerability, you know? I guess it's just the waves that I go through. And who knows, man? The next album may take a different shape. You may see an entirely different Shakka who just wants to fucking, like, adhere to the demon and the savage within him, you know? And again, like I'm just riding a wave of life's experiences and seeing where it takes me, to be honest. But yeah, I feel like just, especially where mental health is concerned, I feel like it's important to have a space where you know that being honest about your weaknesses or your flaws or your intimate feelings that may make you come off as weak or may make you come off as somewhat as someone who may not have everything together, like humans need a space to be able to express themselves that way, or humans need a space to be able to talk about that, and it can't just be your therapist because some people can't afford that shit. Like it just needs to be normal for you to have a space where you can talk about that, just so you can unpack it, just so you can understand it, just so you can rationalize it. Because if you don't, it manifests itself in stupid ways, man. And then we end up doing things just because, or even losing our sense of independent thought and then just doing shit because someone else is doing it. Like buying the clothes because you think you need it, or speaking to women in a certain way because you think that's how men are supposed to be. Or, you know, like the first line in the whole album is, we don't trust these hoes, but do we trust ourselves? Like the idea that we're so used to singing these hoes ain't loyal, like it's like we're branding a whole group of, not even a whole group of women, but like we're accepting and I love that song. I'm not using that song as like the poster child of subservience or like forcing subservience onto like humankind. What I am saying is that whilst it is good to be honest about, I don't know, like people who like to seek glory or seek clout, because there are humans who love to do that. There are women who love to do that. There are men who love to do that. And so there are songs that are perfectly applicable to that scenario. On the flip side, however, let's not pretend we're holier than thou, fam. Like, we're all flawed human beings. We all fuck around. We have all been fuck boys and fuck girls at least one point in our lives. So let's not pretend that we haven't. Do you know what I mean? And the beginning of that journey is admitting that. Do you know what I mean? The beginning of the journey to Venus is saying, I am a flawed human being and I'm in search of answers. Can you teach me, sensei? You know? Yeah. That's how I feel right now. And who knows, in a year or 2 years' time, I may not feel like that. You know, I may just feel like, fuck Venus. Venus sucks. You guys didn't give me no answers to my questions, man. I'm going to go back to Mars where it's safe. You know? Yeah. Who knows, man? Who knows?
Yeah, but do you know what? I think even sometimes like that dynamic of like saying like women are different to men in that respect of like Venus, the whole Venus and Mars thing. Like I get it. I understand like the point of it. It's like, okay, yeah, maybe we not all the time, but this is generally speaking, obviously, like see things or understand things or interact differently. But I don't think that makes us different as people. I think as people, at our core, we're all the same. Like whether you're male, female, gay, straight, black, white, you know, from South America, from Asia, like it doesn't matter. Like we're all people at the core, and it's like the only thing that really differentiates us from each other is the way that we think about the world, and that's a very individual thing. And the way that I think that the way that we think about the world and the way that we think about ourselves deems how we show up in the world, and that creates this element and this feeling of divide. Like there's no reason, right, other than like obvious biological things, right? There's no reason why a man is different to a woman, like emotionally, mentally, like okay, physically there's obviously some elements, but the rest of it is like physically is just very surface. Like below that, we're not different, you know?
I mean, we have many similarities as men and women, like many similarities. This isn't I'm not, I agree with you in that respect. I also disagree purely based on the challenges that, and when I say challenges, I don't mean societal challenges or challenges that have been placed on women. I sincerely just mean the difficulties of childbirth.
Yeah, but that's what I mean by the physical side, right? It's like
but that's a fact. Of course. I agree. I just feel like that manifests itself in the way in which women view themselves and the way in which they view everybody else, you know? Like there's now an aspect of fragility that we as men don't have to deal with. Do you know what I mean? Like, okay, all of a sudden I now have to stop drinking for 9 months. What in the actual fuck? Like, if you've been drinking and you love a rum or you love a wine and then you get told that you just have to adopt a new habit, like automatically. Suppose you didn't plan for the pregnancy. how does that manifest itself? This is just like one aspect of that. And I'm not talking about PMS as a huge a circumstance that exists within a woman's life that can manifest itself in many different ways. Like that in itself is something that we don't have to contend with physically within our bodies, you know? Conversely, women don't have to necessarily deal with, because now as a guy, because of the fact that you are genetically alleviated of those responsibilities, in theory, you should be able to provide much more than the woman has. In theory, you should be able to withstand a lot more of the external challenges that the woman, quote unquote, shouldn't have to or doesn't have to withstand, you know? And so those pressures manifest itself, you know? If the woman has chosen to, if your partner has chosen to be a homebody, and has chosen to be a housewife and has chosen to raise the kids at home and not have a job, then you have to have a job. Otherwise, you guys ain't getting no bread. A pun intended, you know? And so there's a lot of pressure with the guy having to think that he has to provide for himself. Conversely, the woman may want to flip the script and say, okay, cool, like I'm really not on having the family until I'm 40, right? And so now I'm going to go and pursue my career. That has its own side effects. So again, I just feel like, yeah, man, I feel like there's I feel like we're the same. I genuinely believe that we are the same and that the differences, just like you said, are purely based on how we perceive the world, how we perceive ourselves, how we perceive the energies that we contend with on a daily basis. I also feel like because of lack of communication here and there in different relationships, I feel like the challenges that we face purely based on our genetic makeup or purely based on the chromosomes that we have in our bodies or the type of chromosomes that we have in our bodies, those differences manifest itself in ways that we have to contend with. Like we can't ignore them, you know? And so, yeah, man, I feel like the thing I enjoy about albums like this that I've made are the fact that it forces me to have those communications, you know? I remember when I used to listen to Usher's, not Confessions. Is it Confessions? Yeah, Confessions.
Confessions, yeah.
Yeah, like it essentially became the Bible of courtship, you know? And I say this because, like, whilst my dad was very articulate, emotionally at times and just mentally at times, I also feel like when it came to game and courting women and speaking to women, he didn't really give me like cheat codes or anything like that. And so I was winging it in school. And so when it came to those albums, there were a lot of lessons that happened that occurred in there, from from the tones that you could use as a guy to the vocab you could use as a guy. Even songs like "It's the simple things in life we forget." You hear her talking, but don't hear what she says. Why do we make something so easy, so complicated? Searching for what's right in front of our face, but we can't see it. Like, it's a gorgeous song, and it sings very, very well. At the same time, it's also a gorgeous message. And after 15 times of listening to it, you're like, rah, these bars are really dope. But the man them ain't talking about that in school. The man them are listening to fucking Jezebel from Boy in the Corner because it bangs. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So I believe there's a necessity for projects like this. Not just because I'm promoting the shit and I'm in album cycle, but more so because, yeah, man, it hopefully inspires a generation of guys to talk more, you know? And that shit is necessary, man. Otherwise, those same genetic differences just go under the radar and they get ignored, and then this motorcyclist just wants to be part of this interview, fam. I don't know what's going on. But yeah, that's how I feel, man. That's how I feel. Yeah. I feel like we have genetic differences. I feel like they manifest themselves in different ways, and I feel like we should be aware of those, for sure.
Yeah, 100%, man. And I truly agree. And I think that it's being aware of those differences, like the genetic differences, and coming at them from a place of understanding and compassion through
Mm-mm-mm.
communication is what then like bridges that gap, which ultimately we've only created that gap ourselves, right? Because we
Yeah,
create this divide. But like if you can, and I've seen this in my own relationship with my girlfriend, like the more we communicate about
mm,
stuff, if something goes wrong or I do something that she doesn't like or vice versa, it's like if we talk about it, like our bond just gets stronger. Like we don't start to drift apart. Like we get closer because the communication is there, and it allows us
yeah,
to come at each other from a place of understanding rather than a place
yeah,
of like he said she said, or like me versus you. It's like, actually, this isn't us thing. And it's like when you really, I guess, open yourself up to that like level of compassion for
yeah, yeah,
anyone,
yeah.
not just a partner, for friends, for family, for colleagues, for whatever, like you're really able to see things like from a deeper level of understanding, and that for
Fully,
me becomes really game changing.
for sure, definitely.
But yeah, man.
It's a huge deal, man.
Yeah, it is like, and I think the conversation, like you said, man, I think you said it beautifully, is like having an album like yours and the many other albums that are out there that share messages like this, that essentially say to guys and girls, like, guys actually feel this stuff, like we go through this stuff, we have these experiences too. Lets everyone know, like from a guy perspective, that it's okay, like to connect to that part of yourself. And from a female
Yeah,
perspective, like I'm obviously not speaking from that perspective, but I can only imagine it would help a girl understand, like, okay, like this guy or my partner or my brother or my son or my whatever, like,
yeah,
does feel that stuff. He just might not show it,
yeah,
and I think that's a really
yeah.
important thing, man.
It's important. Very, 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 very important.
Yeah. But yeah, bro, like, I'm aware of the time, and that we have come to our limit that we set.
Indeed, indeed,
um,
indeed, indeed.
but yeah, man, like I really appreciate the conversation. I think it's really easy to let these conversations go and just let them slide.
Yeah,
Which is why I always find them so important to have. So I want to thank you for joining me for this today, and for creating the space with me, and for creating the music as well that has
bless you,
initiated this conversation in many ways.
bless you, bless you. No, I appreciate it, man. Like I tell everybody whenever I have interviews with them or whenever I have a conversation with them, and I know that they have a loudspeaker that people listen to. And I mean it when I say that I appreciate the time that you took in order to facilitate this. You know, I believe in the project. I believe in the way in which it connects. But then I also believe in, yes, unpacking the feelings that we have within ourselves, to be able to just like to find out what we really want to say and to just be real with it. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, it's so important. It's so important. And also having platforms that put emphasis upon that conversation is necessary as well, man. For sure. So yeah, thanks, man. Much appreciated.
Pleasure, man. So before we sign out, do you want to let people know where they can find about more about what you're up to, where they can find the
Yeah,
album, etc., etc.?
of course. My name is Shakka. My name is Shakka with two Ks. It's spelled Shakka. I am a bad man when it comes to making music, and my latest album is called Road Trip to Venus. It is a war cry to my demons. It's a labor of love that was 6 years in the making. It is, yeah, my proudest work to date. I hope everybody enjoys it. When it comes to finding me and seeing where they can see me or connect to me, I exist on Twitter, I exist on Instagram, I exist on YouTube, I exist on TikTok, I exist on Facebook. I don't communicate as much on Facebook as I once did. But yeah, man, I exist on those platforms, and every now and again you might see me sing, or you might see me post some. I don't think I've posted a thirst trap, but yeah, you'll see me exist, man. You'll see me exist. Look for me, find me. The album is also available on Spotify, on Apple Music. It features Imani Williams. It features Tiana Major 9. It features Gold Link. and it also features myself amongst many other producers and singers and songwriters. So yeah, thank you so much, and I hope you guys fuck with the album as much as I do.
Love that. Thank you, brother.
You're more than welcome, man. Thanks for having me.
Pleasure, man. Pleasure.